I had a great childhood. Good parents, good upbringing. Sports was a big part of my childhood. Uh, Irish Catholic parents, church strict, very supportive, large family. You know, I look back and I know I was fortunate, but I had a really, really good upbringing. I have an older brother, younger sister. We all got along, and life was good growing up.
My childhood was full of addiction. There was a lot of chaos, a lot of mental and verbal abuse. It was very chaotic at times, never knew what was going to happen in the household when a certain someone came home. There was a lot of parties, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, nonstop parties on the weekends, which I idolized. And I wanted to be like them, you know what I mean? Everybody who was partying in my house.
I grew up in North Attleboro. My parents were married for 26 years. Graduate at North Attleboro High School. Was into athletics, sports.
Yeah, I can try and sum that up, but I want to say it was good for the most part, but there were difficulties like anybody faces. I had my parents got divorced fairly early. What I can remember about that was kind of a blowout, and they separated. I lived with my mom and my sister for a while, and I guess right around probably when I went into junior high school, I kind of started cutting up a little bit more and kind of being a little more rebellious. And my mom had trouble raising the two of us, so I ended up getting sent to live with my dad, and that was a pretty difficult situation, I guess you could say. It wasn't a very conducive environment for kids, and I would say that's probably where I started being as independent as I was. I kind of started being a little more of an introvert. I didn't feel comfortable in that environment, but I didn't always do what I was supposed to either. And then throughout those years, junior high, high school, I ended up going back and forth a couple of times. Went back to live with my mom, and then I finished my high school years out with my mom.
For me, I grew up in this town. I grew up in a loving house. You know, I didn't need or want for anything. But for me, I always took advantage of those things. I always took advantage of the extra love. Like to fill something that wasn't inside me, I guess. So I wasn't a product of divorce. I wasn't in a family that argued. I wasn't in an abusive household. I had everything I ever needed, and I took advantage of all those things.
My childhood. I grew up in a home with a mom, dad, and one sister who's older. I thought growing up I had a fabulous childhood. We did a lot of wonderful things. I didn't know until I was a teenager that my father was an alcoholic. And then he stopped, and I actually hated him for it because that's when he wanted to be a dad. And but luckily for me, my mother picked up and she became an alcoholic, so it was a nice little switch. My family also owned a restaurant/bar, so there was a lot of addiction that ran rampant in my whole family because it was an extended family ownership of the restaurant. But I feel like I had a good childhood. I didn't realize until later the ways that it affected me. You don't realize until later some of the decisions you make. You look back and go, oh, that explains it. But at the time, I thought it was great.